And my focus entirely was on over 40, which allowed me to become a lot more clear about the distinction. So hence my latest book that came out on leadership transformation at midlife. So I love that age. You're right, at the perfect time. Women start going through menopause in that 40s, 50s, that range. Even men, things change in our hormones and things like that. So we have changes that we're quite aware of, and we start to lose a little bit of that sharpness. But at the same time, we have the two hemispheres are talking more with each other. So our right and left hemispheres have more communication between them, which means that we're able to connect the dots more easily than when we were younger. We can see patterns that we couldn't see when we were younger. The same energy that could create a midlife crisis can also create a midlife transformation as a leader, where you can really take your leadership to a new level. So that's what I talk about, is I call them leadership superpowers that emerge at midlife. The fascinating thing is that our resilience goes up automatically as we age. There are studies that show that our resilience index in our 40s, in our 50s it goes up, in our 60s it goes up more, and it's exactly because of this, because we become a bit more comfortable with the uncertainty and ambiguity, and we go, okay, well, things are always changing.
Hey Aneace, welcome to the show.
Hello, Sebastian. Wonderful to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. You're dialing in from Singapore.
Yes.
And we have a very interesting topic today. We both are in an age where we maybe experience some transformation, and you focus on midlife leadership transformations, which is a very unique aspect of sort of combining the changes people go through when they reach a certain age, and this combined with leadership, of course, which also has clear points to consider. So, hey, I mean, maybe first let's talk about a little bit about you. Introduce yourself. What's your story, Aneace?
Okay. So, in a nutshell, I'm based in Singapore. I've been in Singapore 17 years now. I was in France for 20 years, Italy a little bit before that, originally from the US, but I've lived the vast majority of my life overseas. Originally, I was a programmer. So I was a techie. I created a payment software company in the south of France, in Aix-en-Provence, and grew it to 30 countries. Sold it in 2007. Nice. When I was 47 when I sold the company, and I had a midlife crisis at 47 after selling the company. I thought
what's now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought I was going to be I thought I had to be a techie because that's all I knew. I thought I would be a serial entrepreneur, but I discovered that what I was most proud of was my people. So I had people that worked for me that went on to become CEOs, CTOs, CFOs of other companies. And I discovered that was much more rewarding to me than the technology we built, the patents I had filed, all of that stuff felt actually small. So that created a huge shift in the way I looked at the world. So at by 50, I had shifted to what I do today. So I'm 64. I've been doing this now 14 years, executive coaching, leadership development, C-suite. My focus is pretty much entirely on C-suite transformation within large organizations. And around 2 years ago, I was noticing that there was a big difference in when I was coaching people under 40 versus people over 40. So 2 years ago, I made the decision I would stop coaching anyone under 40. And my focus entirely was on over 40, which allowed me to become a lot more um, clear about the distinction. So hence my latest book that came out
Yes.
on on leadership transformation at midlife. So I love that age. You're right. You're right at the perfect time based on the age that you told me as we started. I'm not going to say it in public in case you're keeping that secret, but you're at the perfect time.
But how do you define midlife, or what is so special about
Yeah.
this age bracket?
Yeah.
How do we change from the 35 highly engaged CEO, manager,
Yeah.
leader to a one who's 40, 45?
So it's a gradual transformation, obviously. The kind of textbook definition today of midlife is 40 to 60, something like that. Now, a 35-year-old executive and a 43, 44-year-old executive, there's a lot of similarity. But the changes start to happen in our 40s. So I write in my book about 3 winds of change, what I call winds of change. The first one is physiological, that in our 40s and 50s, our body is changing. We we can't drink as much at night and then go do a board meeting the next day. It doesn't work as well as when we were in our 30s.
Yes, yes.
We we put on weight easier. Women start going through menopause in that 40s, 50s, that range. Even men, things change in our hormones and things like that. So we have physically, we have changes that we're quite aware of. We don't have as much stamina as we did. The second wind of change is neurological. And this part was really, really fascinating. We all know that our brain begins to slow down as we age. We forget where we put our car keys. We forget our child's name, and we think, "Wait, I know your name. What is it again? Oh yeah, it's whatever. It's so we forget things, and that's the prefrontal cortex is slowing down. Not so much in our 40s; it's still going well, but in our 50s, that's starting to happen. Um, and and sometimes it can be a bit scary. So we might be at a board meeting and we have the PowerPoint presentation up with a chart, and we don't remember a cell on the chart, on the spreadsheet. We don't remember what was behind the cell while we're talking, and we're thinking, "Oh my God, what was it again? I need to remember this quickly, or pretend that I know." And we start to lose a little bit of that sharpness. But at the same time, we have the 2 hemispheres are talking more with each other. So our right and left hemispheres have more communication between them, which means that we're able to connect the dots more easily than when we were younger. We can see patterns that we couldn't see when we were younger. We have more comfort with ambiguity and paradox than we were younger.
Yeah.
So when we're younger, we like to look at things as A or B. Like, for example, work. Either I have a great job or I have a great home life. So work-life balance is which one? Which one is it? And then as we get older, we get more comfortable to say, well, let me have both. What would both look like? So there's another interesting one is our intellectual empathy comes down. So we hear someone talking and we go, I don't understand where you're coming from intellectually, but our emotional empathy goes up. So we go, okay, I don't understand what you're saying, but I get you emotionally. And that starts to happen. And then as a CEO, as a C-suite, that means that we can interact much more effectively with people that think very different from us. but we connect with them emotionally, and it's something that would have been harder in our 30s. So I find these things very beautiful. The third one is parental. Our kids are growing up. Do you have kids?
Yes, I have two amazing sons.
How old are they?
They're they are 15 and 13 right now. So they're
Okay.
coming into the age where the 15-year-old. I mean, you see that he's growing up, and but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful age.
It's a very different parenting style, right? When they were 3 and 5,
Mm.
the kind of
Yes, yes,
father you were was very different. And then
yeah,
in 4, 5, 6 years, they're going to start leaving home, going to university and things like that, and still
mm.
completely different. So what I
Yeah,
notice is that senior executives, their kids are growing up, leaving home, and the type of parenting becomes much more, it has to become more inspiring and more empowering, because the KPI kind of parenting when they were younger doesn't work anymore.
no,
And
no,
and
we are
it's
coaches to
fascinating.
them. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
we are
Yeah.
coaches. We have to inspire them. We have to show them a direction. But in the end, they have to develop their own skills and strategies. And we can't just tell
And
them
the
what to
and the
do.
way that you change as a parent,
Yeah. Hmm.
it impacts your leadership style as well.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting time, and some people, they talk about midlife crisis, but
Yeah.
if you imagine all these changes you go through, in your body, your cognitive abilities, kids leaving home, so there's so much turmoil in your life, yeah, that some people might ask themselves, "Hey, I mean, what's now? Maybe you sell your company, you like you did, you shift from a very
Yeah.
busy life, and then suddenly there's a big part missing."
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you have a lot of money, but hopefully, but in the end, money doesn't make you happy. It can't fill all these gaps. So you have to find new activities, new passions, new goals in
Yeah.
life. So it's a very,
Yeah.
very interesting, but for many people also difficult time. The midlife
It's difficult.
time.
It's scary because you
Mm.
have to let go of what used to work.
Yeah.
Um, the skills that got you to where you are, many of those skills still work, but there are skills that
Mm.
don't work as well anymore at that age,
Yeah.
in those roles. So I love that process, and for me, the same, exactly how you just described it, the same energy that could create a midlife crisis can also create a midlife transformation, as a
Mm.
leader, where you can really take your leadership to new levels. That's what I talk about is, I
Yeah.
call them leadership superpowers that emerge, at midlife.
Hmm. Interesting. So, what superpowers you see? What patterns do you see in your clients and the people you work
Hmm.
with? What kind of superpowers do they develop? Because often we um, we develop these superpowers, but maybe we are not aware of them.
Yeah.
So it's good to reflect and to hear from someone, "Hey, this is a superpower, and this is one," and then you think, "Hey, yeah, maybe I'm in the same time of the life, and maybe I'm also developing these capabilities which I didn't have in the past."
Yep. So I mentioned a couple of them, like, comfort with paradox, comfort with
Mm.
ambiguity, or increasing comfort. We may not be
Yes.
fully
Yeah.
comfortable, but it's increasing. Um, the first superpower, that I speak of in my book, is humility and iron will together. So humility
Hmm.
and, a deep iron will. And if you remember Jim Collins in Good to Great, the book that he wrote, many years ago,
Hmm.
he talks about 5 levels of leadership. The top level is a combination of humility and iron will. But when he wrote his book, he described the 5 levels of leadership, and he said the top level he wasn't sure it could be developed. He thought maybe it was something innate. You're either born with it or not. He wasn't sure. He thought maybe it could be developed, but he wasn't sure. And what's fascinating is that his work, his book was written in his 30s, in his late 30s. Most of his work at that time, the research he was doing, was in his 30s. So he hadn't experienced midlife yet. And what I see through midlife is that this previously very rare combination of humility and iron will, it starts to become much less rare as we get older. Our iron will, if we get to the top levels of organizations, we have iron will already. We have a drive. We want to get stuff done. But it's very difficult to age without humility also developing. So we start to learn things don't work out necessarily with the way we want. We're not always correct. So how do I deal with that? So life creates an environment as we age where this humility can emerge, and then you match it with the iron will, and bang, you're in that top level leadership that Jim Collins wrote about some 30 years ago. That's a big one. And as I was doing my research, I saw that many very excellent leadership experts like Jim Collins, Robert Keegan is another one who talks about also 5 levels of leadership. Most of these writers were in their 30s when they came up with their models of leadership. And the models of leadership are excellent, but they don't go far enough. They stop in the 40s or so. And now we're living longer lives. It didn't used to matter. We retire at 65, it didn't matter. Now we're living longer and we want to be active. We want to be valuable and useful longer. So these things I think are coming up because of that.
I can relate to that. I mean, when I look at myself 20, almost 30 years ago, I was fully, I mean, I wanted something, I went for it, and there was nothing stopping me. And then you also expect from people around you to have the same drive and to do things in a certain way. But when you get older, you realize, there are different aspects, there are different ways of doing things, and sometimes things just don't work out. It's just how it is, and you have to accept this, and you have to have this humility to get on with the situation. And iron will also, I think iron will is also something you build over time with the experience, and also that I would say in the midlife, when you are 50, you only have a certain time left, and which also drives your will even more. When you're young, you have more, you can make more errors, and there are more ways you can screw up, and which don't harm you that much. But when you're older, saying, okay, now I really want to get it done, and I want to get the results, and this might also increases your iron will. What I find interesting, what you say, the ambiguity, especially in today's world. I often talk about VUCA, the acronym for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity is how it describes the world we live in. And it's an increasing change, and ambiguity and also uncertainty, I think, is something that when you're older, you can handle more easily.
Yeah. You hear people say things like, nobody died. A big catastrophe happens at work. Everybody is upset. Exactly. And then you think, well, actually, nobody died. So we've had a really bad day, but nobody died. And that kind of perspective can make things lighter It makes us more. A fascinating thing is that our resilience goes up automatically as we age. There are
Mm.
studies that show that our resilience index in our 40s, in our
Mm-hmm.
50s, it goes up. In our 60s, it goes up more. And it's exactly because of this, because we
Yeah.
become a bit more comfortable with the uncertainty and ambiguity. And we go, okay, well, things are always
And
changing.
and you also don't care anymore what other people think. You know, this is also something
Exactly.
I experienced. Somewhere I read,
Yeah.
I even read it somewhere, but I think I read with the age of 40 plus, you stop caring less what other people think, you know?
Yeah.
and, and I said, yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I think
It,
it's
it, it doesn't have a
very
hold
important.
on you like it did when we were younger.
Exactly, exactly. You know, you're thinking too, oh no, I did something and what? No, so what, you know?
Yeah.
If you don't like me, you know, you don't have to watch my videos, you know, just turn off.
Yeah. You don't have to watch my podcast.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah, but putting this into context and putting this in a book and helping midlife age CEOs and leaders to reflect on that, I think is very valuable service because this is yeah, a very unique target group and also a group that has to deal with a lot of challenges in life.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing younger generation coming up, and they have a complete different focus, a different value set, you know, in business and life. And we have to understand them, and we have to lead them in the right way. And this is also part of midlife leadership. So,
Yeah. So that's my entire work is with C-suite.
mm,
So my entire work is with people over 40. My what I offer, the services that I offer in coaching the team, the C-suite team,
mm,
it's not really about going through midlife easier. What I offer are services to create a more effective team at the C-suite, because most C-suites
yeah,
are they're individuals who reached the C-suite level, CXO level, but they're not really functioning optimally as a team. So that's
mm,
my role, is to come in and help them function more optimally. However, I use the midlife transformation as a tool um, to tap into that easier and faster. That was a big discovery after when I stopped working with people under 40. It felt like pushing to try to get a more optimal effectiveness of teams.
mm-hmm,
Over 40, I don't need to push. I can use what's already happening midlife with the kids growing up, with the bodies changing, the brain change. When you use all that, then the transformation happens easier. So I feel like I don't have to be pushing as much. And yeah, that was a big discovery for me.
mm-hmm. So you talk about transformation. So what is the if there's ever an end state of this transformation, but where do you transform? I mean, how do they transform? What do they reach? What kind of level
Yeah.
or end state?
So quite often a C-suite feels like a group of six, seven, eight, maybe nine or 10 very accomplished professionals who have 30 years experience. They've done a lot of things. They're very strong in their roles, but they
Mm-hmm,
tend to still be very much focused on their functional or technical background. So you have the C-suite. The way the meeting often feels like is that the CEO is talking, and then there's the CFO that talks. There's COO. There's the head of the region, and it goes around like that. Um, and which is fine, but in a very complex environment, you need a lot more interaction between the C-suite members themselves so that they're really a team. We've been talking, I mean, we used to call these silos back a few years ago, but this is beyond silos. And then with COVID, I think it was the first time that massively we discovered that these C-suite teams must move to a new level of interaction between team members, because you can't address COVID or other things like that in a traditional way based on hierarchies. You have to come together at the top team and solve these very complex problems, not from your functional background, but from being part of this team. So that's the end state of the work that I do, is for the C-suite team to feel like they're functioning much more as a high-performing team as opposed to a collection of high-performing individuals.
Yeah, which is mega important. I mean, COVID, you mentioned COVID, it was one major
AI.
crisis, but AI now, I mean, I'm really doubling down on AI. I run communities, and I teach executives and C-level on leveraging AI for the organization. And this is changing everything. This is another major milestone or major change in how we run our businesses. And which, for that you need, as you said, function as a team and really take this change which is affecting all parts of your organization, and also leading the people in the organization to. I mean, uncertainty and ambiguity is on another level with AI.
Completely. And we're going to have more and more of these. I mean, we all know this. You mentioned VUCA. We all know that there's more and more of this coming.
And an increasing pace. I mean, look back 10, 20 years ago, you know, how quiet life was back then.
It feels so easy now. As you look back, it's so parochial.
Oh my God. I run a business for over 20 years in the same industry and same services and style. It's crazy to imagine this nowadays.
My latest area on what you're talking about, my latest curiosity is when we're in our 30s and 40s, the kinds of things that we create, typically it's like there's an entrepreneurial energy that comes out. We want to create a startup and we build the startup or whatever. Those kinds of things. It's a very 30s and 40s kind of energy. And right now, a big question mark I have, what do we create in our 60s and 70s? It's not the same thing, but we still want to create. So what is it that there weren't many people creating in their 60s and 70s a few years ago, and they tended to be creating pretty much the same things as people in their 30s. So it was a very small portion of people. Now there's a much larger portion of people that will be continuing to want to be active in their 60s, 70s. What is our creative desire in our 60s and 70s? And the work that I did for midlife, it felt like discovering a new age. And now there's a whole other new age to explore.
Yeah. And what kind of energy do we bring to the table? I'm an investor. I have a couple of investments in startups, and one startup particular. These guys, they are three guys. They are in their 20s. So we had a couple of meetings with the notary, and then they're reading through these papers, and they're reading the birthday. You know, and I said, "Oh my God, you know." I know exactly what I did. I know exactly what I did 21 or 22 when they just been born. And these guys, they have so much energy, you know. I mean, I consider myself a high energy person, but when I talk to them, when I'm in a room with them, I just think,
Yeah.
wow, I mean, they really push through and they get things done, and they're building this amazing organization. They're going through the roof. They're changing very important part of the education system. And those guys inspire me. They are and they are in their 20s. Yeah. But when you say, hey, what do you create in your 60s? It's a different energy level. It's a different focus and completely different leadership style. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. And I don't have an answer. It's a question that I have in my mind now. My guess today, and this could change this evening or tomorrow, my guess right now is it has to do with connection, because we really there's much more desire for connection and creating meaning in our lives.
Yes.
More so than when we were younger. So intuitively, it feels like it's something in that area, but that's a very broad thing. I'm very curious. What is it we create in our 60s and 70s?
Yes, it's based on your needs, on your human needs, and connection is one of the needs which you tend to develop when your other needs are met. So it's like the Maslow pyramid of
exactly.
needs, and you rise up to a certain point where you think, okay, I got your T-shirt, I had a company, I made money. This is not really driving me anymore. And then you discover, there's more in life than getting bigger and bigger cars or the yacht or the next house in life. No? And then you focus
the kids are grown and they've left home and we don't need a big house anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And you might be buying the smaller sport car than, the 2-seater.
Exactly. I have a close friend of mine who has a motorcycle, so he goes off with his wife. The kids are grown up and they're just leaving home. He's very excited. Yeah. The last one is going off to college. He's excited that he and his wife are going to be able to go off on motorcycle trips again, like when they were younger.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's cool. No, I mean, it's a very interesting topic, and I think we can learn a lot. I will definitely get a copy of your book, because I learned that I'm also obviously in this age group, and can take a lot out of these interesting points. So, as a last question, when we talk about CEOs in this certain stage of their life, but how can organizations support them better? Because these organizations are sometimes, for people listening to that conversation, who are maybe in the age of 25 to 35, having a leadership team which is 50 plus, how can they support them? How can they understand them better? Because there are always two sides of the coin.
Yeah, that's a very big. I love that question. There's a lot of depth in that. One element is for when you're at that age, 40s and 50s, you make sure that you're surrounded by people whose prefrontal cortex is still functioning very, very fast and well in their 20s and 30s. Mm-hmm. You make sure you're surrounded by them so that they're doing that kind of work that's very dependent on the prefrontal cortex. And then you empower them with that so that you can focus on the bigger picture, connecting the dots. That's one element. A more tangible element, and I think this is closer to what you're asking, A more tangible element I've seen is for HR to become aware of these changes. And what I see, as soon as people, even HR, I'm thinking people in their 40s already, but as soon as an HR person is aware of this process, they'll immediately understand what I'm about to say, the problem that I raise. In many organizations, HR, I can tell when HR still has children at home, because they have a lot of rules. They have a lot of KPI kind of things that sound like for teenagers. If you do this, that'll happen. If you don't do this, this will happen. It's filled with that kind of energy. And it's natural because the kids are teenagers at home, and we bring that energy to work. And as soon as someone understands that that's what they're doing, they go, oh my God, I need to be careful because nobody in this company is a teenager. They're all adults. I need to avoid bringing my parenting energy from work into this. And that can help HR to look at adults, at people more as adults than children. This is why a lot of people will complain, why does my boss treat me like a child? It comes exactly from this kind of energy. It's the home parenting energy that comes into work. So HR can become more aware of that and can coach and mentor the leaders to remember that all of their team are adults, they're not children, and also to be aware that the even older employees who have grown children, they've already gone through that. So they have a lot of value in bringing that kind of inspiring, empowering energy because they've experienced it with their own children growing up and leaving. So what I find is when people they understand these kinds of processes that are happening, it allows them to be a lot more effective in the organization.
Maybe it's time for a new book focusing on that, something like how to lead your team, how to lead your team of teenagers, not something like that.
Yeah.
To really
people understand it instantly. As soon as they realize it, and I talk to them, they go, "Oh my God, that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing that teenager parenting role in," and then they stop doing it.
At home.
Exactly, leave it at home.
Yeah, leave it at home. Very good. Hey, there's a lot of very interesting aspects in this conversation. I can only repeat that I can want to read this book, and we will put it down in the show notes. And you wrote another couple of books. We have another conversation about organizational grief, which I also want to learn about, but maybe we do this at another time. Aneace, thank you so much for sharing that and opening our eyes and hopefully helping with that create more understanding in organizations. First of all, in the C-suite teams, how they function and why they might think or behave differently because there's so much changing in their life, but also telling people who are younger, then, hey, those are not their teenagers, so don't treat them like kids. Leave this head at home.
Yeah. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Wonderful meeting you. Wonderful speaking with you.